Thank you very much, all three NARIs, for inviting me. And it's a great opportunity, and it's exciting to be able to express my love of kitchen design with you guys. And it's always a pleasure coming to Fretz. The new Navy Yard Showroom is just magnificent. Okay. Bob Graham Jr. is here photographing and taking some pictures. If you don't know him, Bob, you can raise your hand. Bob just finished taking some pictures for Mainline Kitchen Design of one of the kitchens that we just recently finished. It was a kitchen that Ray Gardner, who's standing over there, Ray, why don't you raise your hand? That's it, okay? That Ray did. And when I got a chance to look at the pictures, I was very, very surprised. It was so far above what I had expected that I was just bowled over. But when I thought about it, of course I shouldn't have been, because Bob's a professional photographer. He's been doing it for a very long time. Whatever his efforts are, they certainly should look a whole lot better than I could ever do myself. And as Pamela said earlier, I was a general contractor for 10 years before I was a kitchen designer. And I came out of retirement 3 years ago briefly to work on my own home, and my whole family worked on it with me. We had everybody swinging hammers and doing all kinds of stuff, and it reminded me I had forgotten how hard it is just to learn how to sink a nail. My stepson is very athletic. You know, I could still, after 17 years I haven't done it, I could still sink a nail probably in 3 or 4 swipes of a hammer. It took him 15 or 20, and half of them, if the wood was dry, were bent over. You know, just sinking a drywall screw and having it divot the paper of the drywall is practically an art form, and that, you know, doesn't encompass any of the information and the knowledge and all the things you have to know to be a general contractor. So it goes without saying that if you do something for a living and you do it for a long time, there should be a significant difference between what you do and what somebody that doesn't do it professionally does. And so now I've been a kitchen designer for 20 years. And the designs that I do now are significantly better than the designs that I did just 3 years ago, and the designs from 3 years ago are much better than the designs that I did 10 years ago, etc. And certainly, people that don't design kitchens, or homeowners that have never designed a kitchen, they shouldn't be able to do anything close to what I do. A lot of times expressions or sayings have a lot of true meaning. And so, the expression, a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing, applies a great deal to kitchen design. And that brings me to the title of my speech tonight, which I call Murder by Kitchen Design. So we have a whole bunch of different kitchens that are very, very dangerous, and you can make a kitchen dangerous a million different ways. You can do it just from something as simple as just putting the light switch to the room in a location that's not intuitive to somebody. You come into the room, you've never been there before, you come in the back door, you're fumbling around, trying to find your way to find a light switch, you step on the door dish, all of a sudden you sprain your ankle, or who knows what's happening. But these kitchens have way more problems than that. So the first kitchen here, anybody have any guesses as to what's wrong with this particular one?
Second range position.
Well, I thought somebody might say that, and I'm not sure. It definitely looks too close to me. Theoretically, we'd like it to be maybe 48 inches for a big, powerful range like this. But you can do the honors, sweetie. The problem with this is if you look right here or on your screens around, you have very powerful Wolf, very appropriate for today, burners, just a matter of, looks like about 3 inches away from cabinetry. And you put a big spaghetti pot on the Wolf stove, it flattens out the flames. It's not going to be very long before you scorch the sides of the cabinetry on either side. You'll dry it out, and eventually it's going to ignite. Why don't you turn the next one, sweet? Here's another kitchen, same problem. A lot of the times when you see wood, it's burnable, flammable things too close to a cooktop or a range. It's from these hearths or grottos or whatever we want to call them, large hoods. It's all in beautiful kitchens too. I mean, these aren't kitchens that people were challenged financially. And a lot of these pictures come from the home pages of the websites of the companies that are trying to promote themselves. I mean, in one respect, they're showing a beautiful kitchen, but in another respect, if you're a kitchen designer, you're saying, well, and obviously whoever runs this company has no idea how to design a kitchen. So this one is one, it's startlingly beautiful. I mean, that hood, that hearth, and all the design work and the corbels and all the accent pieces and the glass doors above, I mean, all that thought went into that design, and yet somehow they didn't think that it might not be a good idea to have wood 3 inches away from a powerful cooktop. This is the more common problem from a few years ago. It's a cooktop right very close to the side of a double oven. And we see that all the time. This, probably the homeowner that has this home will be murdered, in fact, not by the sharp knives that are sitting there, but in fact by the flame that's so close to the wood. This one actually gets me really mad, because this was done by somebody that had thought the whole process through, and I don't know if you can see, but they knew enough to tile not just the backsplash, but they're tiling the side of the hood as well. So they know that it's flammable, they know that there's an issue here, but they don't tile these split-face columns that are right in the very front of that same area, or the front wooden part of the hearth, which is right also a couple of inches away from that.
There's also no landing spot.
Well, that's the other issue. I'm glad somebody, so I forget the things I'm supposed to say.
Okay.
So I'm glad somebody brought that up. Yeah, well, if the person doesn't die from when the house catches on fire, before that, their hands are going to be covered in bandages, right? Because they can't turn the handles of pots out so that they can easily use them. No, they have to turn the handles of the pot back over the cooking areas when they're working. My wife, when I was rehearsing my speech, said, well, if you're going to tell everybody about all the bad things and the bad ways to design a kitchen, show one that doesn't have a problem. So you can see on this one right here that you can turn the handles of the pots out. Right? And the hands don't have to be over the flame. It's not going to catch anybody on fire. And so my wife very appropriately gave it the thumbs up down here. This one is not, the problem with this one is not front and center, but it's a big problem as well. Anybody, any guesses?
Microwave, you have to stoop down to see the dials.
Well, that's actually a good guess too. This is a microwave drawer. If you happen to have a 2-year-old, this could be extremely dangerous, because a 2-year-old will be like a heat-seeking missile to go right to the microwave drawer, probably put a Tonka truck in it or something, close it, turn it on. I don't know really what happens if you do that, but it's not a good thing. But what I was looking for is the fact that this stove, which you see a lot of these things you see all the time, so you don't necessarily recognize that there's something wrong with it. And we always see professional appliances with the Wolf, $12,000 Wolf ranges, the 48-inch ranges are in a lot of these pictures. But we always see, you can't have a range, or you're not supposed to have a range right next to a window. And the reason that you're not supposed to have a range next to a window is a couple of different reasons. The biggest reason is, this looks like, I don't know. Whatever these blinds are made of, they're obviously flammable. So someone puts them all the way down, and then you have a fire on the stove, it jumps to the blinds, or even worse, it could be curtains. We actually, Mainline Kitchen Design had a customer we sold the whole kitchen to, because their original design had their stove right next to the curtains. They had a fire on the stove, it jumped to the curtains. It didn't know, the house didn't burn down, but it created $20,000 worth of smoke damage. So they ended up needing a new kitchen. So this one actually is not that bad. It's still not according to building code. It's still not supposed to be that way. But probably if you don't put curtains down there, it's not going to be that bad. And really, this is the homepage of an architect's website. He's advertising what a wonderful architect he is, but he's also broadcasting to people, if you're a kitchen designer, that You know, he doesn't know anything about kitchen design. And he's got, these windows would be different if the windows don't open. Sometimes we see the windows that are fixed. These windows open, they have blinds that come all the way down. I hadn't even thought of this. My wife thought of this. Well, what happens when you turn on the powerful stove? Doesn't it pull out the blind out over the flames on top of the stove? I'll bet you it does. I'm not really sure. But you can't do that, or you're not supposed to do that. Next one.
Only in a downdraft situation.
Not really even that either. Because you can have a fire on the stove and it can ignite the curtain. If somebody, well, the worst part of this is if you don't put curtains on these windows, then it's not anywhere near as dangerous. Here's another one. Again, this is another company's website. Take it off their website. That's their advertising. That's their homepage. It's one of 5 different pictures that's on their slideshow. So, I've dispersed some kitchens that all of us know in this presentation. So this is a kitchen that anybody that's my age, and it looks like some of you guys are that old, should recognize. Maybe if it was in black and white, it would be easier to recognize. Does anybody recognize this kitchen? It's a TV sitcom from a long...
I Love Lucy?
Exactly. There's Ricky cooking in the kitchen. There was actually, if you look at the slide before, this is the second, more modernized version, and this is the original version, if you go back to the other one, honey. This is the original version. They modernized Ricky's kitchen completely over the sitcom, but they still left the stove directly under the window, and they still have curtains over the windows. This is another kitchen that has a brand new problem. I'm not talking about the fact that this stove is too close to the window too. In fact, when you see a kitchen that has a problem, usually, or a lot of the times, it has more than one, because whoever the designer was that was doing it didn't know what they were doing, so they're likely to make more than one mistake. This has 2 mistakes that could kill you. Anybody want to guess on the next mistake? You're not allowed to. I know you have the answer. You're not allowed to.
The hood looks really high.
No, that's definitely true too. We're looking for murder. That's it. All these things are going to kill you.
Homicide.
The sink and the range are too close.
Oh, that's another, that breaks the #1 rule of kitchen design, but it's not going to kill you. What's going to kill you here is having a range on the end of a run, right? Again, this is the end of a run. If people have their pots and they turn the handles out, you can have a little kid that can run underneath the handles and tip the thing on top of themselves. Go to the next one if you want. This is the same thing. This is the same wolf. I believe it's the same. It's hard. It's very fuzzy. Some of these pictures are a little fuzzy. I apologize. But this is the same $12,000 wolf range. And, you know, that's, I believe those burners are 16,000 BTUs. So they don't just put it at the end of a run. They put it right in the doorway. So unsuspecting people, unsuspecting kids coming into the room are going to come right next to 16,000 BTUs of flame with the handles. Because the flames are so hot, the handles will be guaranteed to be pointed out. Now, this is actually on our website. This is like the worst kitchen that's ever been designed in the world. It's, you know, it's got the curtains, it's got the sink and the stove right next to each other, breaking the #1 design rule that you have to have enough landing space to be able to work on both sides of the sink, and both have to be exclusive to both sides of the stove. It's coming in a doorway, and it's our same wolf favorite. And you know, these people have lots of money. They got spent $12,000 on a range, right? And they didn't succeed in, you know, fulfilling the first most important requirement of being a kitchen designer, and that's not to kill your customer. And it's not very pretty either. Okay, here's Rachel Ray. Rachel's cooking on her stove, where she has celebrity guests come in. Hopefully some of the guests won't be coming and entering right from the end of that side when she's flambeing something with flame going all over the place. Otherwise, Rachel's going to need a whole lot of fire extinguishers. So actually, it turns out that on TV, this particular problem is very popular. Thankfully, they're all fictional kitchens, and not real kitchens, but the Cosbys are lucky they're alive, right? Here's Bill talking on the phone, not paying any attention, someone's cooking on the stove, Bill's on fire. Paul and Jamie from Mad About You have their range at the end of the run. Ferris Bueller had the day off. It's fortunate he wasn't cooking. This one, a famous TV architect designed this home. I don't know if any of you recognize it, but if you look right here, the cooktop's right on the end of the run. This TV architect didn't know any better. Anybody recognize the floor plan from that? Who? Brady Bunch, exactly. And actually, I'm not keeping track of the correct answers. I know there's two at least. We've had 2 or 3 correct answers. If you have one, please, my wife we brought Mainline Kitchen Design t-shirts, which you probably don't want, but also Julia Child cookbooks that we give to our customers whenever we finish their kitchen. I had to include this. This is my favorite TV show. This is the scene, the set designer designed this kitchen. Has a lot of problems. The freezer door doesn't open all the way. Actually, it's not really dangerous because the set designer knew enough to put cabinets on either side of the stove. However, when they made the actual set, which drives me crazy whenever I watch the show, it's House of Cards. They have, again, a professional range right on the end of the run. Every time I watch that show, I have a freak out because I have to see it. So now we're on, we've stopped setting you on fire. We're going to murder you a new way. So anybody know what, want to take a guess? What's wrong with this one? Okay, maybe, that's true a lot of the times. What's wrong with this one is you can't do this. You can't have a wall cabinet extending out over a place, and especially maybe there's a place where someone's sitting, right? So I can just see it in my mind exactly what's going to happen here is person's going to stand up and they're going to hit their shoulder here, but that's probably not what's really going to happen. They're going to be the unfortunate one that's going to drop a penny on the floor, or their shoe will be untied. They'll bend over to fix their shoe, and then when they do stand up, they'll fracture their skull. So you can't do that. That's a big no-no in the kitchen design world. You can't extend cabinetry over places. Yeah, this one, this one's probably safe, actually. But I guarantee you the person that designed this wasn't considering whether or not a tall person could stand up from this location and actually hit their head. This one, if they just extended the countertop here, it all would have been safe. But they had to stop the countertop here. This one's a little bit fuzzy too, and have wall cabinets there. And I know that the designer, or whoever the person was that did this, did it to be eclectic, did it to think outside the box, right? All they succeeded in doing was making it different. This one, I don't know if anybody likes this TV show. This kitchen shouldn't surprise anybody that it might murder you. The reason is, if you look at these cabinets over here, they're over the doorway. The doorway is particularly low. Theoretically, if you're going to have wall cabinets on the wall and have nothing underneath to protect them, they're supposed to be 7 feet off the wall. Off the floor, excuse me. I actually designed a kitchen years ago for Samuel Dellenberg, who was the center for the Sixers, and he was just about 7 feet tall. And for him, life is like he's a human radar detector or whatever, finding the things that he's going to hit his head on. But he's expecting it. So Samuel Dellenberg probably never would hit his head there. But those cabinets, from my calculations, are about 6 feet 5 inches off the floor. It's not going to happen when someone's walking in the room. It's going to happen when they go to enter this cabinet. They're going to open the door. They're going to look inside. If they're 6 feet 5 or above, when they stand up underneath, they're going to fracture their skull on the top of the cabinets. And the reason that we shouldn't be surprised that this kitchen is going to murder somebody, does anybody know what kitchen this is from? It's from Dexter. Dexter is a mass murderer, I've been told, who murders mass murderers. So we shouldn't be surprised that his kitchen is going to murder somebody. But the problem is cabinets with moldings not reaching the ceiling. So if you think about it, a lot of times we see people's cabinets, and they get close to the ceiling, and then we put molding on top of them. And if we're not thinking, we put molding on top, and if we're like 2 or 3 inches away, we're creating a space that's physically impossible for anybody to clean. So over 20 or 30 years that whoever's living in this house, they've got dust, they've got dust mites, they've got dead skin, they've got all of these things accumulating in a place that's physically impossible to clean. And nowadays especially, people are very sensitive. People have emphysema, people have all kinds of respiratory problems. That if they happen to have them and they lived in a house that, this kitchen has a tray ceiling, if you have a tray ceiling like this, or copper ceiling, sorry, then you really have to close in where the molding and the cabinets meet and the copper meets. And this is actually everybody in this room, or most people in this room, this is a problem for all of us. Because this is the problem that is part, if you sell appliances or deal appliances, it's a big issue. If you're a general contractor, it's a huge issue. If you're a kitchen designer, it's a big issue. And Pennsylvania just passed a law that requires replacement air for any hoods that are more powerful than 400 CFMs. And if anybody in the room doesn't know why that's a problem, is when professional ranges and professional cooktops started to become things that we put in residential homes instead of professional kitchens, the first thing everybody did was that we gave them the professional hoods to go with the professional ranges and the professional cooktops. And some of these hoods and some of these ones that we've seen in the pictures, well, you know, nobody did anything about this for years and years and years until people started getting sick. But some of these hoods are as powerful as 1,200 CFMs, or 12,000 1,200 CFMs. 1,200 CFMs, which is cubic feet per minute. So what that is that's a space that's 10 feet by 10 feet by 12 feet high. They are vacating 1,200 cubic feet of air every minute is leaving somebody's house. And the question is, if it's winter time and it's cold outside and all the windows and all the doors are closed, where does 1,200 cubic feet of air come from when you turn on your 1,200 cubic foot powerful fan? And the answer is, it comes from the only place it can come from. It gets pulled right back down your chimney, and it gets pulled right out of your water heater exhaust, and you pull carbon monoxide into your house. And so if you have your children in the basement or in the playroom in the basement, or some people sleep in people's basements, the whole basement is filling with carbon monoxide every time you turn on your fan. This one's an oldie but a goodie that we don't see too often anymore. But we all know that you shouldn't have, within 4 feet of a sink, you're supposed to have a GFCI outlet. That's ground fault circuit interrupted. It's really tempting fate to have a 220 volt spiral coil range right next to a stainless steel sink and right next to water. So I thought I would show you a nice kitchen, since I showed you all these horrible kitchens, a kitchen that doesn't have a problem. This is from a movie that I liked. If you're a kitchen designer, it's an appropriately titled movie. It was called As Good as It Gets, and this kitchen is very close to that. There's Jack Nicholson walking around in his kitchen. The next one is the worst kitchen from TV that any of us have ever seen. Anybody have any guesses on the worst, ugliest, the housewife that had the worst kitchen? You know? Who said it? Tom? Yes. That's Alice Crandon's kitchen. And you can't even see it, right? But Alice has a sink, Alice has that stove, and then Alice has a 3-foot-high ice box that has a block of ice, I believe, that you put in to keep her food cold. Whether you have the beautiful kitchen, like the one from As Good as It Gets, or you have Alice Crandon's kitchen, hopefully after my speech today, you won't have to be Lieutenant Columbo to figure out if your kitchen is going to murder you. And I have 2 more slides. Just hopefully, if you saw a kitchen like this now, you would know that that wouldn't be a good thing. That's in a log cabin. That's not probably a log cabin destined too long for this world. And this one is my favorite, actually. So I don't know what the thought process that went through this person's mind is, but you know, I'm sure their daughter has very long hair and she sits on this bench all the time. So I'll answer questions, or maybe we can have a discussion in a minute. I just thought I'd answer the 2 most common questions that I get, just to knock them out of the way so that where everybody can absorb them or whatever, and then maybe disagree with me. But the first question is what happens if I have to design the kitchen that way? What if there's no other way but to have the stove on the end of the run, to have the cooktop to this, to have it under the window? What if there's no way? And I would tell you that from doing it for a million years, that there's always some way. There's got to be a way. Sometimes I wake up in my sleep. Oh my goodness, I figured it out how we're going to do it. But if you're good enough, or you go to the right person, you shouldn't have to kill people to design your kitchens. And then the other question is, well, what if this is what my customer wants? Right? What if my customer doesn't care? That's what he has now. Right? This is what I have now and I'm happy with it. I want it again. Tom Shannon was with me a couple of months ago, do you remember? We were at the customer's house. He was actually a general contractor. He was working on going to redo his own house. And he had, one of the things that we saw here, he had a range right as you entered his back door. And that was the primary entrance to his home. Over there, his mother-in-law came in, everybody was coming in and out the back door. It's incredibly dangerous. And so he said he wanted to do it again. He wanted to spend money on expensive countertops, he was going to get expensive appliances, he was going to take out some walls, he was going to do all kinds of things. It wasn't a budget thing. He was happy with that. And I said, well, if you let us do the work, we don't actually do the work, all we do is sell cabinetry and do the designs, but if you'll move your doorway from here to the window, that's just a little bit down the ways, we'd be happy to sell you a kitchen. But we're not going to sell you a kitchen that's going to endanger your family, and then when somebody does get injured in your house, then you'll own my house, because I wouldn't be a professional, and eventually that would be a lawsuit.